I'm so pathetic when it comes to knowing what movies I've done. I'm sorry. I just, I don't watch them. I feel better not watching them. What was the question again?
How many
Order in the court, or I will have you removed. Understood?
At 61, Johnny Depp remains a towering figure in cinematic history. A man whose name alone conjures unforgettable characters, from Captain Jack Sparrow to Edward Scissorhands. But the man behind those characters? He's changed. No longer the charming rebel of 90s Hollywood or the eccentric blockbuster icon of the 2000s, Depp now walks a different path. Quieter, more cautious, and ultimately more isolated than ever before. Fame, once his playground, has become something of a burden. Far removed from the bright lights of Los Angeles, Depp now spends most of his time in Europe, surrounded by art, music, and a select circle of trusted friends. The sprawling mansions, A-list parties, and red carpets have been replaced with canvases, guitars, and solitude. He paints, he writes, he reflects. After decades of headlines and heartbreaks, it's clear he's focused less on making noise and more on finding peace. But within this calm lies something deeper. A silence that doesn't just signal retreat, but recovery. Because for all his talent, charm, and resilience, Depp has paid a heavy price. Publicly betrayed, legally bruised, and personally devastated, he now lives a life of quiet resistance. His biggest role these days isn't on screen. It's in rebuilding himself from the ground up. At 61, he may be alone, but he's not finished. What remains is a man confronting everything he was, everything he lost, and everything he still hopes to become. But to understand why Johnny Depp now walks alone, we have to rewind, back to a time when his life was burning bright. A moment when he fell not just in love, but headlong into something that would change him forever. Because before the silence, there was a spark. The love that was too fast. In 2011, on the set of The Rum Diary, Johnny Depp met Amber Heard. At first, it was just chemistry, electric, undeniable. But as the cameras stopped rolling, their connection only deepened. Depp, already a legend, saw something in Amber, something that captivated him. She was young, ambitious, and fiercely independent. Their relationship, like many of Depp's iconic characters, unfolded quickly and with reckless abandon. What began as flirtation soon became infatuation. They moved fast, too fast, according to those close to them. Depp was in his late 40s, Amber just entering her 30s. They came from different worlds, both emotionally and generationally. Still, Depp dove in headfirst. He had just ended his 14-year relationship with French actress Vanessa Paradis, the mother of his 2 children. That chapter was closed, and this new one? It felt exhilarating, dangerous, inevitable. But behind that spark was a fault line. Passion is powerful, but it's also fragile. Depp was looking for love, maybe even redemption. Amber, many believe, was looking for something else. From the outside, it was a fairy tale. Inside, it was a storm waiting to explode. The love that ignited so quickly would also be the one to collapse just as fast, leaving devastation in its wake. The beginning was beautiful, the kind of love story people root for. But Johnny Depp wasn't just falling for Amber Heard. He was falling into a cycle, one fueled by generosity, emotional hunger, and a dangerous imbalance of power. Depp gave her everything. From the moment their relationship turned serious, Johnny Depp gave Amber Heard the world, and then some. Friends and insiders described him as completely smitten, saying he was doing everything he could to make her happy. Lavish vacations, penthouse suites, art, horses, designer wardrobes, nothing was out of reach. He had wealth, status, and power, and he used it to build a world for her. For him, love meant giving, and he gave everything. In one of his most heart-wrenching court statements, Depp confessed, "I gave her everything, all of me." And it wasn't just material. He brought her into his personal life, into his family, into his inner world, a place few were allowed. He hoped that by opening himself completely, by being vulnerable, he could create something lasting. But love, he would later learn, doesn't always grow in the space of giving. Sometimes it's drowned by it. What he couldn't see, or didn't want to, was that behind closed doors, their emotional connection was beginning to unravel. The more he gave, the more she pulled away. To Depp, her changing behavior was confusing, even painful. He couldn't understand how someone he loved so deeply could seem so distant. The imbalance grew, and eventually, so did the tension. Because no matter how much you give, if someone's heart isn't truly in it, you're not building a future. You're delaying the collapse. Johnny Depp thought he was building a life with Amber Heard. But love, when tangled with ambition, can turn into something else entirely. And as Depp would soon discover, this wasn't just a relationship. It was a turning point. Amber's ambition. The turning point. Years later, in a courtroom packed with cameras, Johnny Depp said the words that stunned millions. "Her ambition was far stronger than her feelings for me." It wasn't an attack. It was a confession. A realization that had come too late. Depp had fallen in love with someone who wanted more than just love. Amber Heard was rising fast in Hollywood, and being by Depp's side opened doors that might have stayed shut. Insiders close to the couple painted a subtle but growing shift. Amber began landing bigger roles, gracing more magazine covers, speaking at high-profile events. And with each new milestone, something in their relationship reportedly shifted. Depp, ever the outsider artist, seemed more interested in music, painting, and disappearing from Hollywood. Amber? She wanted to be seen, and not just as his wife. The deeper Depp fell, the higher Heard aimed. This wasn't just about career. It was about control. And Depp, in his most vulnerable state, couldn't see the lines being drawn. Their relationship, once fueled by passion, was now haunted by silence and misunderstanding. He still believed in them. She, many believe, had already moved on, emotionally, if not yet physically. This wasn't betrayal in the traditional sense. It was emotional abandonment. And when Depp finally realized he was no longer part of her future, it was too late. The damage had been done. What once felt like forever had fractured beyond repair. And when things broke, they didn't just crack quietly. They shattered on the world stage. Because next came the spiral no one could ignore. Inside the toxic spiral. The love story that began with spark and intensity soon spiraled into a storm of chaos. Behind the glossy paparazzi photos and hand-in-hand red carpet moments, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard's marriage became a volatile battleground. Friends close to the couple described a relationship filled with emotional extremes, deep passion, deeper wounds, and moments that teetered between love and destruction. It was no longer just about the highs and lows of romance. It had become psychological warfare. Arguments became a regular part of their daily lives. Reports emerged of shouting matches echoing through hallways, objects thrown in rage, slammed doors, and tearful retreats. Police were called. Friends distanced themselves. Depp, known for his private and protective nature, found himself locked in a relationship that he couldn't seem to escape or fix. To outsiders, it became clear. Both of them were hurting. But inside the chaos, neither seemed able to find peace. This wasn't a one-sided tragedy. Both Depp and Heard accused each other of manipulation, emotional volatility, and substance abuse. The love they once shared had become a loop of damage, apology, and recurrence. For Depp, it was a prison built out of misplaced trust. For Heard, some would say it was frustration at unmet expectations. They were spiraling fast, and the next chapter wouldn't just destroy their marriage. It would redefine them both in the eyes of the world. As the cracks deepened, what was once personal pain became public war. And one day, seemingly out of nowhere, she was gone. But what really broke Johnny Depp wasn't that she left. It was how she left. The day she left, May 23, 2016. Johnny Depp walked a red carpet in Los Angeles, smiling, shaking hands, promoting Alice through the looking glass. What the cameras didn't show was the storm quietly forming in the background. Just hours before, Amber Heard had filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. It wasn't just a breakup. It was a complete and sudden unraveling. And Johnny, still grieving the loss of his mother days earlier, never saw it coming. To fans, the news felt surreal. How could something so seemingly intimate explode so suddenly into headlines? For Depp, the answer was even more devastating. "I lost everything," he later said. The filing wasn't accompanied by silence. It came with court statements, stories, whispers, and eventually allegations that would rock his career. Amber wasn't just walking away. She was stepping into the spotlight with a very different version of their story. What made the moment so crushing wasn't just the betrayal. It was the public nature of it all. Within days, Depp's personal heartbreak was transformed into a global tabloid frenzy. The man who once controlled his narrative through characters and scripts was now being defined by headlines he didn't write. It wasn't just that she left him, it's that she did it at his most vulnerable, turning private grief into public spectacle. For Depp, it was the day. Everything changed. But the shock of separation was only the beginning. What came next would burn brighter, louder, and more destructively than anyone imagined, turning love into allegation and heartbreak into a global scandal. The abuse allegations that shattered his world. Just 4 days after filing for divorce, Amber Heard stepped into a courtroom with a bruised face and a bombshell accusation. She claimed Johnny Depp had physically and emotionally abused her throughout their marriage. She was granted a temporary restraining order, and images of her injuries were released to the press. The man once beloved for his mysterious charm was now branded a monster overnight. The media eruption was instant and unforgiving. Depp's response was swift and firm. "Never, never did I lay a hand on her," he stated, denying the allegations in full. His legal team pushed back hard, suggesting the accusations were fabricated for leverage in divorce proceedings. Supporters rallied behind him, pointing to inconsistencies, counter-evidence, and a long list of ex-partners who publicly defended his character. Still, the damage was done. The allegations traveled faster than the facts. Headlines don't wait for trials. They sell with shock. It wasn't just Depp's reputation that suffered. It was his livelihood, his mental health, and his identity. For a man who spent his life hiding behind characters, having his private life dissected so brutally felt like being skinned alive. Studios distanced themselves. Opportunities vanished. Disney, without trial, without jury, began rethinking their most iconic franchise. For Depp, it wasn't just about the truth anymore. It was about survival in a world that had already decided his guilt. In Hollywood, silence can be damning, but so can speaking out. And when Depp lost more than just public favor, when the sword fell on Jack Sparrow himself, fans realized something bigger was at stake. Losing Jack Sparrow. And more. It was the role that transformed Johnny Depp from Hollywood heartthrob to global phenomenon, Captain Jack Sparrow. For 15 years, Depp embodied the quirky, slurring, unpredictable pirate with charm and mischief no other actor could replicate. He didn't just play Jack, he was Jack. Disney knew it, fans knew it, and so did he, which made it all the more devastating when the studio dropped him from Pirates of the Caribbean without hesitation. Depp later revealed that he found out through the press, not even a phone call from the people who'd profited off his magic for over a decade. "It was like losing a part of myself," he admitted in court. It wasn't just a role. It was a symbol of everything he had built, and a brutal reminder of how quickly it could all be taken away. He had sacrificed years of his life, redefined blockbuster acting, and built one of Disney's most profitable franchises, only to be erased when scandal struck. For fans, it was a gut punch. Millions rallied online, demanding Disney reinstate Depp. Hashtags trended. Petitions surged. To them, he was Jack Sparrow, and the character couldn't exist without him. But to Depp, the betrayal ran deeper than corporate decisions. It was proof that in the face of controversy, no amount of loyalty mattered. His career was now being shaped not by performance, but by perception. And yet, even in the silence that followed, he didn't stop fighting. Because behind every loss was still a man standing. As roles disappeared and his name was dragged through every courtroom and headline, Depp began to realize the battle wasn't just about clearing his name, it was about reclaiming his soul. And that fight was far from over. The truth unfolds in court. By the time the defamation trial began in 2022, the world had already heard countless headlines. But now, it was Johnny Depp's turn to speak. In a Virginia courtroom packed with media and broadcast to millions, he gave a raw, detailed account of a relationship that, in his words, took everything. This wasn't just a legal battle, it was emotional surgery, a public unwrapping of wounds most people wouldn't dare share with their closest friends, let alone the world. Depp didn't hold back. He spoke of verbal assaults, gaslighting, and the heartbreak of being painted as someone he insisted he never was. He shared stories of isolation, how Heard allegedly controlled who he saw, how she belittled him in private, and how his efforts to love her were constantly twisted into ammunition against him. His testimony was layered with pain, vulnerability, and self-awareness. He admitted his flaws, the alcohol, the outbursts, the deep emotional baggage. But he was also firm. "I never hit her," he said repeatedly, under oath. "Not once." Meanwhile, Heard's team painted their own version of events, portraying Depp as unstable, violent, and deeply troubled. Witnesses clashed. Audio recordings were dissected. And yet, as the trial wore on, the public began to shift. Depp's calm, reflective demeanor, even under hostile cross-examination, contrasted sharply with Heard's performance on the stand, which many saw as erratic or rehearsed. The courtroom became not just a stage for justice, but a referendum on truth, credibility, and the danger of weaponizing allegations in a media-driven world. But even in the darkest moments of the trial, something unexpected happened. A single phrase, said in jest, cut through the tension and showed the world a different side of Johnny Depp, a side that could still laugh, even as he bled. The megapint moment, and a shift in sympathy. It was supposed to be just another detail in a long, brutal cross-examination. A lawyer, pressing Depp about his drinking habits, asked if he had poured himself a mega pint of red wine. Depp paused, blinked, and replied with a dry wit that went instantly viral. "A mega pint?" The courtroom chuckled. The internet exploded. In that moment, Johnny Depp didn't just become a defendant, he became human again. That two-word phrase, mega pint, spread like wildfire. Memes, t-shirts, reaction videos. But more importantly, it marked a turning point in how the public viewed the entire case. It wasn't just funny, it was disarming. Here was a man, torn apart in court, still able to joke, still able to carry himself with dignity and humor. It reminded people of the charm that made them fall in love with Depp in the first place. The pirate, the poet, the misfit artist with a heart buried under decades of pain. And it wasn't just a meme. The megapint became a metaphor for how Depp was treated. His actions exaggerated, his flaws enlarged, his words twisted. Yet, through it all, he stayed standing. Fans began flooding court steps, holding signs of support. Millions tuned in daily. The sympathy that had once leaned toward Heard was now surging in the opposite direction. By the time closing arguments were made, the court of public opinion had spoken, and it had remembered who Johnny Depp truly was. But amid the viral moments and shifting tides, one question remained. Why did she leave? Was it about pain, power, or something deeper? To understand why Amber Heard walked away, we must look beyond the headlines and into the shadows of a broken love. Amber's exit. Why she really left, why Amber Heard left. Johnny Depp has never had one simple answer. To the outside world, she cited abuse, trauma, and irreconcilable differences. But to those who knew them, and to Depp himself, the truth may have been more complex. Depp later revealed in court, "She didn't love me. She loved who I could help her become." It was a brutal statement, but one that echoed through his testimony again and again. He felt used, emotionally, professionally, publicly. Some insiders close to the couple have said Amber became increasingly frustrated by Depp's emotional depth. His pain, his demons, his need for love and creative freedom. While Depp was introspective and private, Heard was building a public-facing career. Hollywood events, press tours, activism, she was rising fast. And being Mrs. Johnny Depp opened doors. But when Depp began to spiral under the pressure of their relationship and outside stress, Heard allegedly began to pull back, emotionally and then physically. Others say it was control. Depp was a romantic, intense, loyal, and all-consuming. Amber, according to sources, wasn't looking for that. She was looking for independence, identity, and ambition. And when Depp's pain became too much, the drugs, the drinking, the nights of despair, she didn't stay to fix it. She left. Whether out of self-preservation or strategy, her departure devastated Depp. Not because she walked away, but because she did it at his lowest, and then rewrote the ending. To him, she didn't just leave. She betrayed the love he thought they shared. But even in betrayal, there's survival. And while Amber's exit broke him, it didn't finish him. Because what came next wasn't revenge. It was rebirth. Rebuilding at 61. In the years since the trial, Johnny Depp has begun the quiet work of rebuilding, not in headlines, not on big-budget movie sets, but in small, meaningful ways. One painting, one concert, one honest moment at a time. He's largely retreated from Hollywood, choosing the European countryside over the Hollywood hills. Instead of chasing scripts, he's chasing stillness, the kind you can only find after surviving the storm. He's focused on art and music, the two things that gave him peace before fame ever touched him. His band, Hollywood Vampires, has played sold out. Shows across Europe. His paintings, raw, colorful portraits, have sold for hundreds of thousands. But more importantly, they've become expressions of his healing. He's been seen at quiet cafes in Paris, meeting fans with grace, staying out of scandals. It's not a reinvention. It's a return to the man he was before the spotlight blurred his edges. At 61, Johnny Depp is no longer trying to prove himself. He's just trying to be himself. The man who once played broken characters with haunting accuracy has walked through the fire of that same brokenness and come out the other side, not untouched, but unshaken. His resilience doesn't roar. It whispers, and it says, "I'm still here, But before closing this chapter, there's one final note, a message. Not to the media, not to the world, but to the woman who left, and to the man he used to be. His message to Amber and the world. In the aftermath of the trial, Johnny Depp has remained mostly silent on Amber Heard. He doesn't need to speak. Not anymore. The world saw, the world heard, and the world judged. But when he does speak, in interviews or music or rare public letters, there's one theme that lingers: forgiveness. Not because she earned it, but because he needs it for himself. Love can be a weapon, he once said in a haunting post-trial moment, if you give it to the wrong hands. It wasn't bitterness, it was wisdom. Depp isn't chasing apologies or revenge. He's chasing peace. He's let go of the narrative others tried to force on him. Now, he's writing his own. And in that story, Amber Heard is no longer the villain. She's simply a chapter. A painful one, but no longer the ending. At 61, Johnny Depp is a man who lost everything and lived to tell the story. Not perfectly, not cleanly, but honestly. He is scarred, weathered, and reborn. And his message to the world is simple: I'm still standing. I've got more stories to tell. And this time, they're mine.